There was a car that could think, a man with no past, and a highway that never seemed to end. Knight Rider was not just a television show. It was a feeling, the feeling that somewhere out there, justice was roaring down an empty road at 200 miles per hour, with a red light sweeping back and forth across its nose. But the actors who brought that world to life, some are still here. Others left far too soon, and the distance between 1982 and today is longer and more painful than any of us expected. Hi, my name is Edward, and this is Screen Legends. 1. David Hasselhoff. Michael Knight, age 29 at the start of the series. There are very few actors in television history who became so completely fused with a single role that the role itself seemed to follow them everywhere they went for the rest of their lives. Without apology, David Hasselhoff is one of those actors. At 29 years old, he stepped into the leather jacket of Michael Knight, a man presumed dead, rebuilt with a new face and a new name, and handed the keys to the most sophisticated automobile ever conceived. And somehow, standing next to a black Pontiac Trans Am and delivering lines to a dashboard, he made every single viewer believe it completely. Michael Knight was cool without trying. He had the easy confidence of someone who had already survived the worst thing imaginable and decided to keep going anyway. His relationship with Kit was not simply a man and his vehicle. It was a partnership built on trust, dry humor, and a kind of loyalty that most people never find with other human beings, which says something either very beautiful or slightly concerning, depending on how you look at it. After Knight Rider ended in 1986, Hasselhoff did not quietly disappear. He became something far larger and far stranger. He became Baywatch. He became a pop music phenomenon in Germany, which remains one of the most delightful and unexplained cultural events of the late 20th century. He performed at the Berlin Wall. Let that settle for a moment. The man who once talked to a car performed at one of the most historic moments in modern European history. Today, David Hasselhoff is 72 years old. His path has not always been smooth. He faced very public personal struggles, including a difficult divorce and well-documented battles with alcohol. Challenges he has spoken about honestly and without excuses. That honesty, perhaps more than any role he ever played, revealed his true character. His net worth is estimated at around $10 million. He remains active in television, stage productions, and public appearances, still greeted everywhere he goes with the kind of warmth that only genuine affection can produce. Knight Rider made him famous. Life made him human. 2. Edward Mulhare, Devon Miles, age 56. At the start of the series. If David Hasselhoff was the heartbeat of Knight Rider, then Edward Mulhare was its spine. As Devon Miles, the quietly commanding director of the Foundation for Law and Government, Mulhare brought something to the show that is genuinely difficult to manufacture: elegance. Real, unhurried, old-world elegance. Every scene he occupied seemed to slow down slightly, as though even the camera understood it was in the presence of someone worth watching carefully.
But Devon was not a man who raised his voice. He did not need to. He delivered instructions with the calm precision of someone who had already considered every possible outcome and found them all manageable. His relationship with Michael Knight was layered with fatherly affection and professional restraint. Two men who respected each other deeply and showed it almost entirely by never saying so directly. Mulhare had already lived a remarkable life before Knight Rider found him. Born in County Cork, Ireland in 1923, he had worked extensively on stage and screen, even stepping into the role made famous by Rex Harrison in the original Broadway production of My Fair Lady. He carried that theatrical weight into every scene he filmed. Edward Mulhare passed away on May 24, 1997, at the age of 74 following a battle with lung cancer. He did not live to see the full measure of how deeply Knight Rider had embedded itself in the hearts of its audience. But those who worked alongside him remembered a man of uncommon grace, one who treated every production, regardless of its scale, with the same focused dedication. He is remembered tonight with deep respect and genuine gratitude. 3. Patricia McPherson, Bonnie Barstow. Obaizas
age 29 at the start of the series. Every legendary machine needs someone who understands it down to its last wire. For Kit, that person was Bonnie Barstow, played with quiet intelligence and steady warmth by Patricia McPherson. Bonnie was the chief engineer of the Night Industries 2000, which is an impressive title for anyone. And she wore it without a trace of arrogance. She was methodical, passionate about her work, and one of the few people in the entire series who could make Kit T sound slightly nervous. McPherson brought a grounded, practical femininity to the show, at a time when female characters in action television were frequently reduced to decoration. Bonnie was never decoration. She was the reason the car worked. That distinction mattered then, and it still matters now. After the series ended, Patricia McPherson chose a path that prioritized personal fulfillment over continued celebrity. She stepped away from the relentless pace of Hollywood and eventually moved toward environmental advocacy and a quieter private life, which honestly sounds like the most sensible decision anyone from a 1980s action show ever made. Today, Patricia McPherson is 71 years old. She is remembered by fans with enormous affection. The woman behind the machine, the steady hand that kept the legend running. Her journey is a quiet reminder that fame and a fulfilling life are two very different destinations, and that choosing the second over the first is never something to apologize for. 4. William Daniels, voice of Kit, age 46, at the start of the series. Here is a remarkable thing. The most iconic presence in Knight Rider never appeared on screen once. William Daniels voiced Kit, the Night Industries 2000, and in doing so, created one of the most instantly recognizable voices in the entire history of American television. Precise, slightly sardonic, endlessly patient with a man who drove him into things on a weekly basis. As Daniels brought Kit to life with a kind of refined wit that elevated every scene. Kit was not simply a computer, he was a personality. Curious, occasionally exasperated, and possessed of a dignity that most human characters on the show could not quite match. The dynamic between his measured voice and Hasselhoff's easy charisma was the quiet engine beneath everything the show achieved. What makes Daniels even more extraordinary is the sheer breadth of what surrounded that role. Before Knight Rider, he had delivered a Tony Award-winning performance on Broadway. He portrayed John Adams in the musical and film version of 1976's 1776, and an entire generation knows him as the wonderfully opinionated Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World. The man has never once been anything less than excellent. It is almost annoying. Today, William Daniels is 97 years old. 97. He is still with us, still sharp, still beloved. His net worth is estimated at around $8 million, earned across 8 decades of extraordinary work in theater, film, and television. If Kit were real, he would almost certainly calculate that Daniels has demonstrated remarkable longevity, even by his own computational projections. 5. Peter Paris, Reginald Cornelius III, RC3, age 26 at the start of his run. When Reginald Cornelius III arrived in the later seasons of Knight Rider, he brought something the show genuinely needed: street-level warmth and an energy that felt spontaneous and alive. RC3 was resourceful, quick-witted, and completely unimpressed by technology that could have intimidated anyone else. Or he treated Kit less like a miracle of science and more like an occasionally difficult colleague, which was honestly the correct approach. Peter Paris stepped into the role with natural ease and held his own alongside a cast and a premise that had already established itself firmly in the public imagination. That is not a small thing. Joining a beloved show in its later years, carrying new energy without disrupting what already worked, requires a specific kind of confident and generous performance. After Knight Rider, Paris built a steady career in both acting and entrepreneurship, eventually finding significant success in the business world outside of entertainment. He became involved in various professional ventures that demonstrated a sharp and practical intelligence. The same intelligence, perhaps, that always lived just beneath RC3's easygoing surface. Today, Peter Paris is 64 years old. His journey is a quiet reminder that the stories which begin under studio lights do not always end there, and that sometimes the most interesting chapter comes after the cameras stop rolling. 6. Rebecca Holden. April Curtis. Age 26. At the start of her run, Rebecca Holden stepped into Knight Rider during its second season, taking on the role of April Curtis, the new chief technician who arrived when the show needed fresh momentum. It was not an easy position. She was following a character that audiences had already grown attached to, and the expectations were high and not always fairly applied. Television audiences in the 1980s were not always known for their patience with change. Some things never change. Holden brought brightness and genuine warmth to April, a woman who combined scientific precision with an openness that made her immediately likable. She was capable and compassionate, and she made the lab feel like a place where real people worked rather than simply a backdrop for plot mechanics. What makes Rebecca Holden's story genuinely moving is what came after the spotlight. She found deep Christian faith, which became the defining force of her life after acting. She transitioned into gospel music, ministry, and motivational speaking, a path so different from Hollywood that it reads less like a career change and more like a complete transformation. She has spoken openly and joyfully about that journey, and there is something quietly beautiful about a person who knows exactly who they are and lives accordingly, and without hesitation and without apology. Today, Rebecca Holden is 68 years old. She remains warm, active, and certain. Qualities that, when you think about it, she always brought to April Curtis as well. 7. Richard Basehart. Wilton Knight. Age 69 at the start of the series. Every origin needs a founding voice. In Knight Rider, that voice belonged to Wilton Knight, the dying billionaire whose final act of generosity was to give a broken man a new identity and an impossible mission. Richard Basehart portrayed Wilton with the gravity and tenderness of someone who understood that he was playing the moral foundation of everything that would follow. He appeared briefly. He mattered enormously. Basehart was already a titan of American film and television long before Knight Rider. His work stretched back to the 1940s, including an acclaimed performance in Federico Fellini's La Strada, a film of such emotional power that it still moves audiences today. He was a man of genuine artistic range, and he brought every ounce of it to a role that lasted only moments on screen, yet anchored the entire mythology of the series. Richard Basehart passed away on September the 17th, 1984, at the age of 70, from complications following a stroke. He did not live to see Knight Rider become the cultural phenomenon it would remain for decades, but the weight he gave to those opening scenes, the quiet seriousness of a man giving away his greatest creation, set a tone that every actor who followed him was able to build upon. Nay, he is remembered tonight with the reverence that a career of his depth deserves. Some foundations are invisible once the building goes up. That does not make them any less essential. 8. Lance Legore. Recurring antagonist, age 44, at the start of the series. There is a particular kind of actor that every great action series depends on completely, and thanks publicly almost never. Lance Legore was that actor for an entire generation of 1980s television. Tall, physically commanding, with a voice like gravel and a gaze that communicated threat without a single word of dialogue, Legore was the face of menace across some of the most beloved series of the era, the A-Team, Magnum PY, and Knight Rider among them. He appeared in Knight Rider in recurring antagonist roles, and he was extraordinarily good at it. There is a real craft to playing a villain that audiences enjoy hating, and Legore understood it intuitively. He never chewed scenery. He occupied it, which is considerably more frightening and considerably more difficult. Lance Legore passed away on September 10th, 2012, at the age of 75, following a long illness. The response from fans and fellow actors was immediate and heartfelt. He was remembered not only for the roles he played, but for the professionalism and generosity he brought to every set he ever worked on. He is honored tonight as exactly what he was, an irreplaceable piece of the machinery that made an entire era of television feel thrilling and dangerous and alive. And 9. Don Stroud, recurring villain roles. age 38, at the start of the series. Don Stroud arrived on screen, and audiences immediately understood that whatever was about to happen next, it was probably going to be unpleasant for someone. Built like a force of nature, and possessed of an intensity that read clearly even through a television screen, Stroud carved out a remarkable career as one of Hollywood's most reliable and genuinely compelling antagonists across several decades of film and television work. His appearances in Knight Rider as recurring threatening figures gave the show some of its most viscerally tense moments. Stroud never played a villain as simply evil. He played them as convinced, certain of their own logic and their own justifications, which is always far more unsettling than straightforward cruelty, and always far more true to life. After his peak years in Hollywood, Stroud faced personal challenges that tested him in ways the camera never captured. He has spoken in later years about his faith and the peace it brought him, a dimension of the man that his imposing screen presence would never have predicted, and one that makes him considerably more interesting than any character he ever played. Today, Don Stroud is 80 years old. His career spans more than 5 decades of work, marked by a consistency and a physical commitment that very few actors of any era have matched. 10. Gil Gerard, guest appearance. Age 38. At the time of his appearance, Gil Gerard arrived at Knight Rider as a recognizable and genuinely beloved face from the same golden era of action television. Audiences already knew him and trusted him from his years as Buck Rogers in the 25th century, a role that made him one of the defining stars of late 1970s science fiction and earned him a place in the hearts of a generation of viewers who grew up believing the future would be considerably more exciting than it turned out to be. His guest appearance in Knight Rider felt like two legends briefly sharing the same highway, nodding at each other before heading in separate directions. There was a natural ease to his presence on that set, a man who understood exactly what kind of show he was on, and gave it everything that kind of show deserved. After the peak of his fame, Gerard faced significant health challenges, including a serious battle with weight-related illness that he discussed candidly and with real courage. It's that willingness to speak openly about struggle, rather than retreat behind the polished image that fame so often demands, revealed a man of genuine character. Today, Gil Gerard is 80 years old. He remains a figure of deep affection among fans of a very specific and wonderful era of American television. The kind of affection that does not fade because it was never built on anything as temporary as trend. It was built on genuine enjoyment, and genuine enjoyment, it turns out, lasts a very long time. 11. Peter Cullen, additional voice work. Age 40 at the time of his contribution. Peter Cullen is, by any reasonable measure, one of the greatest voice actors in the history of the medium. If you heard him speak right now, without any introduction or context, as something in your chest would recognize him before your brain had time to catch up. He is the voice of Optimus Prime. He is the voice of Eeyore. He contributed his remarkable vocal talent to the world of Knight Rider during its run, adding to a body of work so vast and so beloved that listing it completely would require its own dedicated series of videos. We may actually do that. Stay tuned. What makes Cullen extraordinary is not simply the range of his voice, but the soul he places behind every character he voices. They feel like real beings with genuine interior lives, which is perhaps the rarest and most valuable gift any performer can possess, whether they appear on camera or not. Today, Peter Cullen is 82 years old. He is still working, still voicing Optimus Prime. He's still reminding every new generation that heroism sounds like something very specific, and that something very specific is him. His contribution to Knight Rider may be a footnote in a career of extraordinary chapters, but every footnote in a life this rich deserves to be read. 12. John Larroquette. Guest appearance, age 29. At the time of his appearance before the Emmy Awards, before Night Court made him one of the most recognized comedic faces on American television, John Larroquette passed through the world of Knight Rider as a guest performer in the early years of the series. He was young, sharp, and already possessed of the effortless timing that would later make him a household name. Watching those early appearances now is a strange and wonderful experience. Like finding a photograph of someone famous taken before they knew they were going to be famous. Larroquette went on to win 4 consecutive Primetime Emmy Awards for his role as Dan Fielding on Night Court, a record that still stands, and that speaks to a comedic gift of genuine rarity. He later demonstrated equal range in dramatic roles, proving that the early instincts visible in those Knight Rider appearances were pointing towards something real and lasting. Today, John Larroquette is 76 years old. He has spoken openly about his past struggles with alcoholism and his long road to sobriety, a journey he has navigated with the same wit and self-awareness that defines his best performances. His net worth is estimated at around $14 million and earned across a career that never stopped growing, never stopped surprising, and never once stood still. His brief time in the world of Knight Rider is a small thread in a very large and impressive tapestry, but every tapestry begins somewhere. So here we are at the end of the road, and what a road it has been. Knight Rider gave us a hero, a car, a mission, and a cast of human beings who poured real life into every scene they filmed. Some for seasons, some for episodes, some for a handful of unforgettable moments on a set they may not have known would matter so much for so long to so many people. Some of those people are still with us, still working, still carrying the warmth of an audience that never quite let them go. Others are gone, and the loss sits quietly in the space between what we remember and what we can no longer reach. Edward Muehlherr, Richard Basehart, Lance Legault. We say their names tonight not as an acknowledgement that they were here, that they gave something real, and that the work they left behind continues to move people who were not even born when the cameras were rolling on that empty California highway. That is what Screen Legends is here to do, not simply to inform, but to remember. Not simply to look back, but to honor the people who made looking back feel worthwhile. My name is Edward. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. If these stories have stayed with you the way they have stayed with me, please follow the channel and join us for the next journey, because there are so many more legends waiting to be remembered, and we are only just getting started.